Welcome again to SQL for Absolute Beginners course, lesson 7.2. In this lesson, as discussed, we'll create a new table. So we discussed that this will be going to be an exercise. So I want you to write a new to create a new table and write a query to create that new table. And here is the exercise. Very simple. We want to create a new table. We'll give the name as address book, and it should belong to the same schema which we have created currently, which is addition schema. And the fields we need are first name, last name, address, city, state. I will leave you the type of each field to be defined by you, whatever you wish. However, lengthwise it should be, whatever type it should be, I will let you decide that. And basically you can also decide whether it should be null, allowed or not. So pause the video. Please try to create your statement. You can also try it out in your workbench if you want, or at least write it down and have it ready. And we'll come back in a minute. All right, so I hope you wrote the create statement and maybe you also tried it out. But the answer to this one, this is how I would create a table. Not necessarily this is the only way, but just as an example. So it will go like create table. Remember, these are the keywords. So create table, the name of the table, which is address book, open parenthesis, and then each of the column names. So first one is ID. Now if you remember, when I said which are the columns we need, I did not specify ID as a column. I just said first name, last name, address, city, state. But even though you are not requested to create such thing, from database performance and use perspective, I would suggest you always think in terms of there should be an ID column existing that should help us do a lot of other operations later on that we'll need to do. So even though you are not asked to, I would suggest you create one at least, which is the ID column. And then of course all the other fields that are, so first name, if you again see, the actual request did not include any underscore or anything. It just said first space name. But when we create actual column name, we should put an asterisk in there. So make a practice to also not leave any space in between, and either at least have some underscore or some other option. So first underscore name, and I gave varchar length 30, and I am not allowing null in this. It's up to you, but ideally if that this book is for addresses, we need to make sure that first and last name are captured. So first underscore name, last underscore name, same varchar, not null, address varchar 15. You can create 20 if you want. And we are saying, okay, we may have name, but we are waiting for the address to be added. So I said, let's allow null. Ideally, it shouldn't be the case. If it's an address book, you should have an address, but just for the sake of it. All right, so then city and state, same way. Now, we need to execute this. So why don't we go to the workbench and let's actually execute this statement. So we will have a table called address book. Let me open the workbench on my PC right here. So these are the commands we executed in the previous section. So let me create a new SQL window tab basically, and we will have our statement, which is what we just saw: create table, address book, ID, first name, last name, all of that. And let's try to execute it. And here it is. It says green check mark. That means it's done. If you want to see, so for example, right now all the schema addition shows this table, phone book. Of course, that was before we executed this. So let me refresh that section. So you have to right click on this section, say refresh all, and right there we have address book as a table. If I expand that, we'll see the columns. Let's expand that, and here it is: ID, first name, last name, address, city, state. As you also might remember that if I just, without expanding that, if I just want to see it here, I can also use command called describe, and then just put the table name address book and put a semicolon. Now I can also do with a schema name, which is addition.addressbook. Either way it should be fine. And let's try to execute this one. So we will see the same details of all the columns as we define, and whether null allows or not, integer type, basically all the same thing that we defined. So our table is ready. Now let's go back to our exercise. So we have the the table created. Now the second exercise I'm asking you to do is again very simple, but try to do it, is write a select statement to view data from this table and check what is the output and tell me why, meaning just understand why. So pause the video, go to workbench and try to write the select statement. If you remember the select statement we reviewed last time, the structure should be select, then the field names, and then the table name, is actually the keyword from table name, and that's a pretty basic structure. So try to write a query for with select and let's see what you get. Pause the video and I'll come back. Okay, welcome back. Hope you tried the select statement exercise and let's see what the output you provided or how you wrote the query first. So there are various ways we could have written our query. One is if we want all the fields, then we would put select star from Edison.address book. Or if I want just a very specific field name, then I would say select first underscore name, because that's the field name we gave, from Edison.address book. Or we can also say select first name, comma, last name, comma, cd from Edison.address book. Either one is fine. Let's try to pick a very simple one, select star from. Let's go to the workbench and let's see what happens. So I hope you tried that out also, but just in case not, let's do it. And I select that select statement and try to execute it, and here is the output. It did execute well. There is no error message here, but it says 0 rows returned. Well, obviously it makes sense. The output section, the results grid, it says it's blank and it's empty, which makes sense because what we have done so far is we have created our schema, right? So we created our basket, which is the schema. In this basket now we put certain notebooks, our address book, phone book, all of that, which are nothing but tables. So we have schema, we have tables, but the notebook, if you consider, is actually empty. It is blank. So there is nothing in this table to show. So that's why this select statement returns nothing, because there are no record. No matter which select statement you execute, it will not show anything, which makes sense. Now because we haven't written anything, so there is no record, obviously. So then the question is, how do we start writing in that notebook? How do we get our records in the table or other tables also? So there is another specific command called insert, and in the next lesson we are going to review how to use insert command to add our records and start filling up our table. So that will be exciting time coming up. Let's see how to use insert command in the next lesson, and until then try to practice these SQL commands. Try to make sure you understand the structure of it, because these are going to be now quite commonly used. Select statements and such things are going to be useful on a day-to-day basis, or at least whenever you write your program or any other thing. So until then, practice SQL. See you soon. Thanks.